Good morning, Pastor Brian here. Thanks for joining me today as we read a psalm a day through the book of Psalms. Today we'll be reading Psalm 54 together, and I'll be reading from the Common English Bible. So let's jump into Psalm 54. Save me, O God, by your name, and vindicate me by your might. Hear my prayer, O God, give ear to the words of my mouth. For the insolent have risen against me. The ruthless seek my life. They do not set God before them. But surely God is my helper. The Lord is the upholder of my life. He will repay my enemies for their evil. In your faithfulness, put an end to them. With a freewill offering, I will sacrifice to you. I will give thanks to your name, O Lord, for it is good. For he has delivered me from every trouble, and my eye has looked in triumph on my enemies. It's the end of Psalm 54, a rather short psalm today, and this one really kind of felt short as well. But one of the things I really want to focus on today for me was the fact that, this psalmist, this psalm in particular, both recognizes the things that are going on around him, the people who are rising against the psalmist, and maybe it really is people, or maybe it is just life that is rising up against him at this time. And maybe that's how we can interpret some of these psalms when we see the psalmists pointing to not necessarily specific people, but people as the ones rising against them. But maybe it's not people for us. Maybe it is a job. Maybe it is, our health at this time. Maybe it's just the struggles with the pandemic and everything else that's going on. So, think about ways in which you can interpret this psalm to not be like, well, I don't have anyone who's assaulting me personally. Maybe you do. But maybe there's other things in life that are assaulting you, and you can insert them in the place of this psalm instead of just people. But then the psalmist takes this really hard turn, in a good way, a really good hard turn from verse 3 to verse 4, saying, "But surely God is my helper. The Lord is the upholder of my life." And continuing to say that, God will conquer the evil that is happening to me. And in God's faithfulness, that's what I love, is that God's faithfulness, there's our faithfulness to God, but then we also remember that God is faithful to us as well. And I love the fact that the psalmist recognizes God's faithfulness in all of this, that whatever he is going through, whatever the psalmist is going through, whether it is actual enemies or the things that are going on in our lives, as I just talked about, that God is faithful in God's interactions with us. And that in the end, because of God's faithfulness and the way in which God pulls the psalmist through this time of trial and tribulation, difficulty, stress, he offers a free will offering. He will sacrifice to you. And, that we don't do those kinds of things anymore, but we do give praise. We do pray to God. We give thanks to God's name, because God's name is good, because we know that God helps us through all of our troubles. And that's not to say that our troubles won't take time. It's not to say that they'll be over in an instant, but that God works through all of them, and that God works with us and alongside us, and that God is faithful. So those are the things that I pulled out of today's text. What did you get out? What did you like? What didn't you like? Write it down. Share it with a friend. Share it with us. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And as always, God bless.